This is exactly what I've been waiting for. This is exactly, I don't mean to sound like Cat Williams, but this is exactly what I've been waiting.
12 o'clock midnight.
I am in no more. This, today, is one of the worst days that I've had in a long time.
Finally, after 7 years, 7 long years, Cyberpunk 2077 has finally arrived. Easily the most hyped up game of the year. Well, I mean, actually, one of the most hyped up games of all time. CD Projekt Red has built up a ton of anticipation. Everything from the trailers to the gameplay to the world looked perfect, making us think that this game was going to be something great. Well, now it's finally here. Was it worth the wait? Is this the game equivalent to the second coming of Jesus? Well, after playing the game for about 7 hours, Cyberpunk 2077 has left me feeling disappointed, yet somewhat optimistic. It certainly wasn't worth the long wait and multiple delays, considering the state of the game, which, in case you didn't know already, but the console version of Cyberpunk is a huge dumpster fire, filled with game-breaking glitches and bugs. Yet, I kept playing for some reason. Because in the moments where the game worked, it worked well, and what we got isn't really that bad. So far, Cyberpunk is shaping up to be a solid open-world game with an extensive role-playing system, a great story, and decent combat, all taking place in one of the most vibrant cities in any game I've played in recent years. However, there's so much here that is holding this game back from being the magnus opus it set out to be. So before I go into my first impressions, I should note that the gameplay you're seeing are from the first few hours of the game, essentially the first act. Everything I talk about will be solely based on what I got to experience so far, so naturally, I haven't toyed around with all of the features Cyberpunk offers, nor will this video sum up my final thoughts of the game, just how I feel about everything I've seen so far. Also, some of the stuff I showcase may or may not be spoiler material, so if you're really dead set on going into Cyberpunk blindly despite bare YouTubers uploading the entire game, entire playthroughs on the internet, then I'd suggest opening up another tab and just listening to the audio. So, with all that out of the way, let's dive in.
City! Stanley here with you, and we got another day ahead of us in this city of dreams. Ooh, I love this town. Love it like you might love a mother who popped you out on the steps of an orphanage once, and now...
Alright, let's start off with the story, or the premise rather. You play as V, a cybernetic mercenary living in Night City whose backstory, gender, and other attributes are customizable to suit your preference. V's looking to make some big bucks in Night City, and finally gets to do the heist of a lifetime, stealing a sacred biochip from one of Night City's biggest corporations, Arasaka. In typical video game fashion, shit turns sideways and V has no choice but to take this chip and put it into their brain. It turns out this chip contains the soul of John Wick. My bad, Johnny Silverhand, a notorious rockstar anarchist who attempts to take control of V's mind.
Fuck.
That's pretty much the basic gist of the story, and so far, it's got me hooked. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but from what I've seen, it's been nothing short of amazing. Granted, this is CD Projekt Red, the same team behind the fantastic Witcher series, so they've naturally got a penchant for great storytelling. It's a narrative about searching for the truth in a city full of lies, working with the likes of high-profile people to dangerous crime lords in order to figure out why V has been put in such a precarious position. The characters I've met have really made the story worth the while so far too. V's buddies like Jackie, his ripper dog Victor, and Judy, everyone's current favorite wifey, are full of so much charisma. But the standout act right now is without a doubt Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves. He acts like that annoying voice in V's head, popping up in random places you wouldn't think, scolding you, hell, even threatening you at times. He's like a extra violent version of Tyler Durden from Fight Club. My time spent in the seedy, futuristic world of Night City has been good. Everywhere you look, Night City is drenched in neon lights, full of civilians, gang members, corpos, and cops roaming the streets. Night City has this really dark and exploitative tone to it as well. The ads and billboards you'll pass as you're driving by are in your face, attention-grabbing, and hypersexualized. It's a city where your life can be modified to suit your inner desires. And notes you'll find scattered around will paint this picture that Night City isn't exactly this ideal safe haven that many people think it is. And just to be honest, it's fun to drive around the city and just take in the scenery, especially at night. It's like Blade Runner meets Akira meets Grand Theft Auto. It's so fucking good. As far as gameplay goes, Cyberpunk plays like your average first-person shooter but with a bigger emphasis on the RPG elements. Basic shooting and movement is okay, pretty much what you'd expect. And I also like the Borderlands style of weapon dropping where you're always finding something new with higher stats and buffs. And as a futuristic game, you're going to be doing a lot of hacking, like exposing enemy pathways or frying someone's circuit board to stun them. And you got some pretty basic stealth with lethal, non-lethal takedowns and the ability to hide bodies, something you'd see in like a Hitman game or a Deus Ex game. Now, when it comes to the RPG side, there's different skill trees where you can spend points to create V to suit your playstyle. You can put points to improve your hacking, stealth, combat, and etc. And much like the Witcher series, V can also engage in combos and choose the best response for a situation. Some will change the outcome of a mission and thus will change the course of the story. I did one mission early on where V and Jackie are buying a drone from a gang and I didn't even engage in combat once. Simply just talking my way through, where other outcomes might have you fight everyone in the building. So there's definitely a big difference depending on how you play. And one last thing I gotta add too is the music. Holy, the music is fucking awesome. I found myself bobbing my head during missions, from the bass-heavy synth-drenched original soundtrack to the various artists you're gonna hear on radio stations like Run the Jewels, Grimes, and A$AP Rocky. The music really helps add to this dark, seedy tone of Night City. Like here, take a listen, take a listen. So all of this is sounding to be pretty good, right? Good story, deep open world, decent gameplay, and an amazing soundtrack. What's not to love? All of this would be really great if the game just worked, which it doesn't. This is hands down the most poorly optimized game I think I've ever played in my life. And I'm gonna just say it straight up. If you're one of those neckbeards who waited since day one to play Cyberpunk, and I'm talking about you were counting down the days since like 2013, you took time off, you put money into a new PC to get a new console to play this, my heart goes out to you. It really does. Because I honestly can't imagine being somebody who waited this long for this shit. On PS4, Cyberpunk is a huge mess. Damn, where do I start? Let's see. The game struggles to reach 30 FPS most of the time, let alone 60. During intense combat or even just driving, the game would turn into a fucking slideshow and I'd wince because I'm thinking to myself, great, the game's gonna crash now. Which it did at one point because I took a hard turn into an alleyway while I was running around the city. And you know the performance is bad when even the opening intro keeps stuttering every time you start up the game. And the graphics? They've been downgraded immensely since the first preview back in 2018. It honestly looks like something from the last gen, like a late PS3 title. Textures will take longer than normal to pop in for characters in the environment, and listen, at one point, my character model for V didn't even bother loading in, so I was just running around aimlessly like a floating gun. I can't make this shit up. Oh, and the glitches. Ooh, they're bad. I mean really bad. I'm talking game-breaking bad. You know, I had my fair share of brain-dead AI and people clipping through walls, you know, some usual shit. But the worst, and I mean the worst one, was early on during the game. A quest marker pops up on an enemy who had an item I needed. Him and his buddy spawn in the next room. I see this fucker from a mile away with the icon on his head floating in an elevator. I run up to him, he starts breakdancing, and he disappears. The whole mission was completely fucked after that, and I had to restart from my last save. Mind you, this ended up happening several times in other missions, and it seems to be a problem for everybody. So if this all means anything, it shows that Cyberpunk should have been delayed again. It's abundantly clear that the game was not ready despite the numerous delays, and it really makes you wonder, if the game is so bad now, imagine how it would have looked like if it came out in April when it was originally supposed to release. Listen, I'll be completely honest, I'm not even sure if I could even finish the game if these big bugs aren't ironed out soon enough. Hell, you know this game is really bad when Sony said, you know what, we'll take it off the PlayStation Store and give you guys your money back. It's not a very good sign. So basically, my first few hours at Cyberpunk 2077 have been eventful, to say the least. On the good side, the story has been great with stellar characters and an interesting premise. The open world of Night City is vibrant with content that will keep you busy for a long time. Gameplay is decent too, with an in-depth RPG and loot system, and it's got some of the best music I've heard in a game in a while. Despite all of that, there's a lot here that has plagued the game from being good. Horrible technical performance like slow FPS and bad texture loading, really bad AI, and game-breaking glitches and bugs that are inexcusable at this point and have really soured my experience. So I don't know, definitely not what I was expecting from one of the most hyped up games in years. And while there's still enough here that would keep me playing, even if it's not a whole lot, I'm gonna either wait it out until the game gets patched, which who knows how long that'll take, or just get a refund for now and buy the game later on next year. So who knows, maybe I'll come back to Night City with my final impressions. So until then, I'll see you guys next time.